I wanted to talk just briefly today about some patterns I guess I'm seeing in myself, and I wanted to get some ping back from you guys on if you're seeing this something similar in yourself. And this has to do with the modalities of the functions and how to move them. Let me just start with my NI. Then my first function is I have feminine NI. If someone is going to move my NI, like let's say I've developed some pattern and they are trying to talk to me and get me to move it. For me, it would require showing me some SE to say, well, what about this sensory detail? What about that one? And what about that one? That conflict with my NI pattern that I've developed. I would take that in and I would say, okay, that I didn't have that. I was missing that, and I didn't take that into account. And you're right that changes things, my pattern, that breaks my pattern. I would have to update that, throw it away. So that's how that works with a feminine NI. Throwing SE at it, and as long as I can verify that the SE is valid or whatever, but you get the point. It would break my NI pattern. I would have to update it. There's no way around that. Then similarly with FE, I mean, introvert and extrovert function, there's going to be some differences there because the introverted ones are personal. The FE is like not really personal for me. But if you were like, okay, I see that you have this FE, I don't know, pattern or whatever, but your FE is off in some way, you could like give me the TI or thinking logic. It's off because you're not taking into account this or that or whatever. So I guess if you threw TI at me, that would move my FE. Because I'm basically just tracking the values and the feelings with it. So it's very movable. I guess throwing thinking at it, logic makes a lot of sense. I would move if I could be shown that it's not accurate. There's no reluctance there at all. So then my next function is masculine TI. Now, if you want to move my masculine TI, and we're following that same pattern, if you were to throw FE at it, that's not going to have any effect at all. My TI is not going to move like that. That's not how it works. You have to. I have to. Number one, I have to be comfortable with explaining my TI to you on a deep level, and I have to see that you're actually getting it, that you understand it on a deep level. You could tell it back to me, and I would say, yeah, you definitely have it. You definitely get what I'm saying. And then you would have to see the flaw in the TI and be able to explain to me, okay, well, you're missing something right here. This part over here is not accurate because of X, Y, Z. And you have to be able to go there on a deep level with me. And then if you point it out and I'm not able to defend it, I'm going to have to change. That's just the nature of it. I want it to be accurate. And if I'm shown that it's inaccurate, I have to update it. That's just a requirement. So already I'm seeing the difference here with the feminine functions and then the masculine one. It's completely different if you want to move it. You have to take a different approach entirely. So then let's just hit on the masculine SE at the bottom. This one's a little harder to see, but basically I'm taking in sensory, gathering sensory. If you were to somehow be able to show me that the sensory I think I have is not accurate, you'd have to show me other sensory. You couldn't throw intuition at me. The concept just sounds insane from my perspective. It's like you would overturn the sensory I think I have with better sensory that I could verify. So that's important. This is me giving some bullshit blaster lesson, but that seems like it's a very important insight, at least into me, for an outsider who's trying to change my opinion or thoughts. You would have to know, okay, what functions does this person have? Which ones are the masculine ones? Which ones are the feminine ones? Which one am I trying to move? That would determine how to approach trying to get me to move. Because the wrong way is going to be disastrous. It's not going to work. I'm not going to move. We might end up being angry with each other. It's just going to be misunderstandings happening, and that's not beneficial to the goal. Number one, if I am wrong, I want to be corrected and be not wrong anymore. I want to be right. So if you see that I'm wrong in some way, but you're approaching it in the wrong way, we're not going to get anywhere. So when I look back at all of the times I've disagreed and had disagreements with people and we butted heads, I'm like, this is probably what happened, something like this. Either one way or the other. One of us is bumping into a masculine function and we're approaching it from the wrong direction. Because I know I would approach someone else as if they have masculine TI, and I would think that in order to move their thinking, I need to connect with and understand on a deep level their thinking, because that's how it would work with me. And same with intuition. I would assume throwing SE at them, if I see that their intuition is off, throw some sensory at them and they'll move, because that's what would work for me. So I see that pattern is there. That's how I'm going to be approaching other people, or at least before I learn about all these functions. That's kind of a losing strategy some of the time. Some of the time it'll actually work if you are hitting on someone else's feminine function and you're taking the approach that works for you with that same feminine function. But if they have a masculine version of that function, that probably isn't going to work. Or if they don't have that function at all, that's a whole different problem. So this seems like a pretty major insight, at least if the goal is to avoid conflict with people and to actually have beneficial discussions with people and get them to move when they need to move. It could be the case that you try to get someone to move and then you go deep with them because they have that masculine TI or masculine some other function. You're trying to get them to move, and you take that deep dive with them and you realize, actually, they're right. I was wrong. Now that I've seen their work, they've showed me I was incorrect. So that's beneficial also, I think, for both people. How is this? How am I just at 51 learning this stuff? This stuff seems vital to good relationships with people. Now, if the person you're communicating with isn't typed, which they're probably not, and you probably aren't great at typing people, most people aren't very good at that, how do you figure this out? I guess when you've had a couple of interactions with someone and you see the pattern happening, you'd have to track that and say, okay, let me try a different tactic this time. Like if I'm throwing SE at someone to get them to move their intuition and they're not moving, maybe I need to take a deep dive with them on their intuition, understand that on a deep level, and then point out the flaws in their intuition instead of the thing that's failed every time. And that would apply, I would think, to other functions as well. If you're butting heads with someone and you're throwing the opposite function at them to get them to move and they're not moving, maybe take a deep dive with them on that function where they're not moving. Worst case is you find out that you're wrong and you update. But the best case is that you actually show them that they actually are wrong, and then they update, and then both of you are happier. If you see the flaw in this, tell me, because I definitely want to have an accurate representation of what I'm seeing. But this seems actually accurate, and it seems vitally important to know. Wow. You can teach an old dog new tricks sometimes, apparently. Peace out. Take care. Bye-bye.